How's it going, my truant people? Dr.Slaking, the Slacking Doctor, back for week 8, I believe, of the APA Academy. It could be week 9, but I think it's week 8 of the APA Academy. And this week, your Bowland Bovines are taking on Tone and his Miami Malamarlins, I believe it is. Hopefully I've got that all correct. If you guys want to skip ahead to the battle and skip the team builder and all the preamble and stuff that I'm going to be talking about, then the timestamp will be appearing above my head right now for you guys to do that. And just before we jump into the team builder, let me do my thank you. So shout out to Lance and Joe for recording the battle. I now gen my teams myself, which is awesome, so that saves some time there. And thank you to all of my front office for helping me mock and build this week. Pretty much everybody was involved in this that's usually involved. So shout out to all of them. We were pretty well prepped for this week, actually. So a little bit of a preamble before we even get into team builder though. You may notice I'm not wearing headphones for this one. I'm probably going to be a little bit quieter in my audio. I'm already pretty quiet, I think, but I'm going to be a little bit quieter in my audio this time. Basically, this video is currently Monday, the 20th of May. I don't know if you're watching it today or not. I have no idea. It was supposed to be up yesterday, but yesterday I did like a 6-hour drive or something, a pretty long drive before I got home. I was very, very tired and I had the flu, and I was like, I'm not going to record today. I'll record it tomorrow. I'm sure Mid will understand, everybody involved in the APA will understand. But then today, I've been doing work today, and then I've just been hit with the most horrific headache. My vision is going a bit wodgy. Somewhere between wonky and dodgy, that one. My vision's going a bit off, and I feel like absolute crap. So I don't want to have music in my headphones, otherwise I'm just going to collapse. So rather than doing that, not physically collapse, mentally, which I already am doing from the way I'm talking, can't say anything right. But so for that reason, I'm not going to have any headphones on for this. And I'm going to be rather subdued. However, my hope is that with this being a relatively low energy recording, we can make up for it by being more analytical perhaps, and really focusing in on everything we want to talk about, because this was a fantastic battle, and I think it's well worth talking about. Now, if my clothes change and you don't see this on Monday, it's because after doing the team builder and trying to record the commentary for the battle, I just didn't make it through and decided to record it when I felt a little bit healthier. But by the by, my apologies for the late upload and everything else. Now that ramble is out of the way, my opponent's team should be appearing above my head. There, I think over there. I don't know. It confuses me every time. I usually get it right though, so hopefully that's right. And my opponent's team is really, really scary. So my opponent has the Tapu Koko, the Mega Medicham, the Skarmory, the Crocodile, the Shaman, the Blissey, Slowking, Mismagius, Noivern, Magmortar, and Garbodor. And I just realised as I'm reading this out that I've left my phone on loud. I don't want that to go off, so let me just do that. And now I'm hitting the microphone. God damn it. So anyway, yeah, my opponent's team is pretty scary, and it's got this really nice offensive core of things like Tapu Koko, Mega Medicham, Mismagius, Noivern, Crocodile, Shaman. You know, these things are perhaps lower tier threats, but certainly the Tapu Koko and Mega Medicham, fantastic Pokemon in the format. But then it also has this kind of like stall core. It's not a stall draft, don't get me wrong, but with things like Slowking and Blissey and Shaman together, Slowking, Blissey and Skarmory together, that's a really hard core to break through, plus things like Shaman and stuff that can be defensive too, which is why that came up. And also the potential hazard stack on Skarmory and Garbodor can mean that if you're trying to switch around to break through things like Blissey and Skarmory, you're going to be taking a lot of chip from hazards and whatever else. So really, really difficult team to actually prep for, because you don't know if you want defense for the offense or offense for the defense, and you know, it's kind of polar extremes here on Tone's draft. He's got super fast, super offensive mons, super great breakers, combined with ultra fat mons, rather than being kind of hard balance. It's the two extremes. So anyway, with all that being said, let's jump into the first set that we've brought. And this week, oh, I forgot to say, I should have said this earlier in the video, but we didn't have a draft analysis for this fourth and final draft for the team. Third and final draft? Fourth and final draft. How many drafts have we had? I think this is the fourth, right? We draft every 3 weeks. I think this is the fourth. We draft on week 1, week 4, week 8, week... You don't draft on week 12 because that would be the playoff draft. Week 1, week 4, week 8, right? Yeah, and that would make this week 8. That makes sense. Third and final draft, unless we make playoffs, of course, and then we'll have a playoff draft, but third and final kind of complete original draft. And the reason we didn't have a draft analysis for this, sorry, my thoughts are all over the place, is because I didn't draft this team. I was actually offline for that week when this draft was happening, so shout out to the APA and everyone who's involved in running it for being very understanding. They let Strumpful draft my team for me. I chose Strumpful out of my front office group because, one, if I let them all do it, they would never agree, or they would end up memeing and giving me something horrific. And also because of all of the people in my front office, I would say that Strumpful drafts most similarly to me, and probably is the most trustworthy person not to troll me in my front office. I think just about him and Aquarius are the two that I think wouldn't troll me. Everyone else, good chance would troll me. But Aquarius probably drafts a little bit more offensively than I do, just about. Although these days, I don't know. So anyway, we went with Strumpful on this. And yeah, so let's get into the team. Basically, you're going to find out what we've drafted as I'm talking about it. So the first one on the team here we decided to bring, making debut on the channel, is Dusclops. Dusclops is a really, really cool pickup. This was actually one that I suggested Strumpful towards the end of the week. We were in touch over Facebook, so I was able to find out what he was drafting later on in the draft. And I just said, hey, I think Dusclops would be a cool addition here, and he agreed. So yeah, I was really, really excited to use this mon. The obvious reason for bringing Dusclops is that Mega Medicham. It struggles to break through bulky psychics. Unfortunately, we don't have one, but having a bulky ghost does mean he is going to be hopefully disinclined to click high jump kick, and also potentially even just run drain punch instead, which makes it a lot easier to switch into for everything, a lot less of a scary breaker. And what's more, we can kind of get some damage off. So you can see this set has Shadow Ball Pursuit and stuff, just so we can kind of chip things down. For example, that Mega Medicham, if we want to Pursuit it, I know it might seem ridiculous, but he probably won't stay in. If we can Pursuit it and get, you know, maybe 20% off on it as it switches out, it's just going to help us wear it down and give him fewer switches to get attacks off, because realistically Dusclops won't take many Zen headbutts. It'll take some, but not many. Of course, Pain Split on hit for longevity will us, because if we can burn the Mega Medicham, that would be incredible, and Shadow Ball so we can actually do some damage. I don't think this week I realised that Dusclops got Frisk. I think it just slipped my mind, so I think we're actually running this with pressure this week. It isn't the end of the world. I would rather have had Frisk, but that's, you know, that was just an error I think that I made this week. Anyway, now there's going to be Simon. Dusclops is nicknamed Simon this season. One of the agreements we had with Strumpful for him drafting my team was that he got to nickname the mons in return. So these are all going to be Strumpful's nickname, apart from Simon, which is something I just nicknamed Dusclops once, and Strumpful loved it, and so he was like, please call it Simon again. So we got Simon the Dusclops. Next mon on the team we have, and I don't know how to pronounce all these nicknames. I'm going to be honest, I don't know. I haven't asked Strumpful. So next up we have Mamoswine. We'll get the nickname later, I think. We have Mamoswine. I don't know how to say the nickname. And Mamoswine this week is a really, really heavy Spadef set. I believe this team, me and Ben, no, Ben actually gave me a mock more this week. Yeah. This team was more kind of me building it and then mocking it with other people. I believe. I think that's right. So this is a really Spadef Mamoswine, fully Spadef invested, a little bit of HP, a lot of attack, adamant nature, with an Eye of Papa Berry. Basically, this way we can come in on Coco twice with a Life Orb, Dazzling Gleams, and that will pop our Eye of Papa Berry, and obviously we can scare him out all the time. Crucially, I think that the Skarmory is always going to be a switch into this thing, because we really can't do too much to a Skarmory, even if it's Spadef, which I'm expecting it to be mixed defensive. So we have Roar on there, so I can just phase his team around, and be really, really obnoxious for him to play around, because one of the ways to kind of chip down things like Blissey and Skarmory and stuff is with hazards, and if I can just keep phasing them out, chip, it's a really nice way of just wearing down that defensive core that he has that otherwise is so hard to break through. This is, of course, our rocker, because I don't think he'll ever stay in with Coco the first time we come in on it, so we can get rocks up that first time, and then we can start to play later. And Mamoswine is nicknamed, I want to say Bourgeois, but that's not how you spell bourgeois. Borgios? Borgus? Borgius? Borgius. We're going to go with Borgius. A bit like Gorgeous, but with a B. This is a blood. Mamoswine's joined a gang, and rather than being called Gorgeous, she wants to be known as Borgius with a red B with the emoji. I can't put that in a Pokemon game, but you get the point. Next up, we're going to have Outbreaker, Thunderous Therian. I've never got to use any of these mons so far, Mamoswine or Thunderous Therian, or of course Dusclops. But I'm really, really excited to be using Thunderous Therian. I think it's such a cool mod, such a powerful breaker. We had Thunder Eye earlier in this format, in this league, so I'm excited to try out Thunder T now. And Outbreaker this week went through some changes, and I kind of fucked up this set, if I'm perfectly frank. It's Wild Charge, Superpower, Fly, U-Turn. It's not supposed to be. Originally, it was Thunderbolt, Superpower, Sludge Wave, U-Turn. Sludge Wave so we could hit things like the Coco and the Shaman. Superpower so we could hit that Blissey. And of course Thunderbolts, we could hit the Skarmory for stab, whatever else U-turn, so we could pivot out on the potential Blissey to break it. But the more I looked at it, the more I was like, do you know what, I don't think I need to do this. And it was actually an Electrium Z set originally as well with that Thunderbolt, just being able to put massive chip onto something, pretty much the Koko if it came in, the Blissey with a Electrium Z into a superpower, usually KO'd Blissey, things like that. But then last minute, I was like, wait, why am I doing it special or mixed when I could just go fully physical? There's nothing on his team that was physically right, because Skarmory shouldn't be fully Fizz Def. It should be probably mixed because we have a Mega Diancie on this team, I should say. And Mega Diancie being able to run that Diamond Storm for the Blissey makes Blissey not a great check. So I figured the Skarmory, or we figured as a front office, as a team, as your Bowland Bovines, I guess, that Skarmory would be the Mega Diancie check. So with that in mind, the Skarmory looks like it's going to be mixed defensive likely. So I was like, so why don't I just run fully physical Thunderous? The reason that I say I think I kind of made a mistake here is because it's just not as strong. As a breaker, going from 145 special attack down to 105 attack, I didn't actually look at its stats, right? In my head, I just went, I know this thing's strong and mixed. I'll just run it fully physical. I didn't stop and consider that I just sacrificed 40 attacking points for the rest of his team. And then I was like, what do I want to hit with the Sludge Wave? Well, Shaman, I can hit that with the Z-Fly. The Z-Fly will also be able to hit the Blissey really well. It will also be able to hit, you know, most things really, really well. So I was like, screw it, let's just go Z-Fly. It's just a great nuke against his team. Like I say, this isn't bad reasoning. This isn't bad building. It just was unnecessarily complicating things. The set I had worked perfectly fine. I just thought, wait, why am I going mixed when I could go fully physical? Because mixed is better. That's why you get the most out of your Thunderous by running it that way, rather than limiting it to its relatively mediocre attack stat. So, yeah, definitely a big mistake here in terms... Well, not a big mistake, but just a needless mistake here. And I guess this is the danger of me genning my own team, is that when I came to gen it, I was giving it another look over and just tweaking things in PK Hex, where usually I'd have sent it off and wouldn't have had time to do that. And that's where I did all these changes. So... yeah, bit of a stupid mistake there by me, but nevertheless, this set still has great matchup. Because that Skarmory is likely to be mixed defensive, this still has phenomenal matchup. You know, everything I've said is still true about this set. So, next up, fourth mon on the team, a mon that is not making its debut on the channel, that is certainly not my first time using it, is Hydreigon. Nicknamed Rouge Ones. I think that's, you know, the French for red, rouge. Rouge Ones. I think Stormful names most of his things after songs, but we have very different tastes in music, so I don't know these songs. But regardless, if Stormful's watching this far, I don't know if he'll watch the team builder, but if he is, then comment down below, Stormful, if these are all songs and who they're by or whatever. I don't know. And this Hydreigon set, again, went through several iterations, and I'm not sure that I ended up at the best set again here. This was a Z set at one point. This was a Dread Plate set at one point. This was a Papa Berry set at one point. All sorts going on here. But in the end, I settled with Wise Glasses because it looked like it got me the damage rolls that I really wanted to. And with Outbreaker, the Thundy being fully physical, I decided to make this thing fully special because I was no longer worried about Blissey. Blissey was the obvious switch into Hydreigon, so this thing had superpower and even Z superpower at one point. But I was like, do you know what? I've got physical Thunderous, and you just cannot switch in on physical Thunderous, so I don't need to worry about that. Slowking is one of his potential physical walls, that gets bopped. Skarmory, one of his potential physical walls, that gets bopped. So really, as long as I U-turn on a Blissey and don't lose momentum, Special Hydreigon is perfectly fine in this matchup. So I did decide to go with the Dark Pulse Fire Blast Defog U-turn. Dark Pulse hits everything on his team, and the Fire Blast particularly hits the Skarmory. So there wasn't really anything else that I needed to hit. For example, the Koko coming in does not like a Fire Blast. If it wants to try and switch in on that, it's going to take maybe 50%, 45%, something like that. So yeah, with this, well, actually we're a mild nature, not a modest nature. So with the plus special attack nature, we're going to just do huge damage against his team. So that's the kind of thinking there. Next up, the penultimate mon on this team. It is a mon making its debut on the channel, I believe, at least in Draft League. Certainly the first time I've used it in Draft League, although I have used it on the ladder before, and I've used this set on the ladder before, roughly, and it's so much fun. And that is Salazzle, nicknamed EMEL or Emil. You tell me. You'll see in the battle. It's capital E, capital M, capital E, capital L, like an acronym. No idea what it stands for. No idea if it's Emil or EMEL. We're going to go with EMEL for now anyway. And this set went through a little bit of a change as well, being Flamethrower, Toxic, Substitute, Taunt, max HP nearly, quite a bit of speed and a lot of defense. Obviously Corrosion, Toxic is just so obnoxious, especially with a Skarmory on his team. We can hopefully chip that thing down. However, it did feel a bit needless when I stopped and thought about it, because I was like, wait, I just flamethrower a Skarmory anyway. But what is really, really nice is that if the Blissey comes in, I Toxic it as it comes in, I then Taunt it, I can sub up on it. I did have Protect on this set as well. Strumpful suggested that we remove Protect for Flamethrower, which I agreed with. Actually, he suggested that I remove Taunt for Flamethrower, which I half agreed with. I thought that getting rid of Protect was better because I didn't like Blissey being able to get rocks for free on me and potentially, you know, wishing on me or soft boiling on me, sorry, or whatever. So I was like, you know what would be better than that would just be keeping Taunt and getting rid of Protect. It does mean that I get less chip every time this is in, but it's not the end of the world. And this is going to crucially come back in the commentary because I actually forgot that I changed this set in the battle. I thought this was still Protect and not Flamethrower, and that really does change some of the decisions that I make in this game. Even though it hits the field and I see Flamethrower, it didn't register, and that will come up at times. Because with this in Speed Tier and Flamethrower, even uninvested, it will do quite a lot to his team, especially that Skarmory, and potentially, you know, if we can chip down the Slaking, something like that. Then this thing can really go in just with the Speed Tier alone, and its natural, pretty decent special attack. Then the final mon on the team is Troy Senior, the Tangrowth. I've never used Tangrowth either. I know what this mon is nicknamed for, of course named after Tangler Boots. Shout out to him, Troy. So we have Troy Senior here with the Mago Berry. Again, another set that just went through so many changes. This was originally AV, but I hated the fact that the Skarmory really just came in on me and hazarded up. It defogged, it did whatever it wanted. It set spikes, set rocks, it defogged, it Whirlwind, did whatever it wanted, Brave Birded. And I just couldn't really touch it, say for a knockoff to get rid of maybe a leftovers, but that wasn't helping as much as I would have liked. I think if I was running something like you know, Magnezone or something with this, then knocking it off to get rid of its Shed Shell, for example, would be fantastic. But I just didn't feel like the leftovers were really changing too many roles, and so instead I was just really hazard fodder for the Skarmory. So with that in mind, I decided to change the Mago Berry so that way I could run Sleep Powder. It did transform the whole set because rather than being an AV kind of special wall, it became a lot more offensive. We're pretty much max bulk and then adamant, nearly max attack. Max HP, I should say, when I say max bulk, with a little bit of Spadef thrown in there for good measure. But with Power Whip, Earthquake, Poison Jab, we do hit most of his team pretty nicely, and what we don't hit, we can put to sleep. So I feel like as kind of a tank mon, not really a breaker as such, but just kind of a tank pivot to come in and fire off one or two decently hard hits. And with the Mago Berry on there, giving us some longevity against some of his physical threats, like maybe Mega Medicham, we could take a Zen Headbutt, get the Mago Berry back up, and, you know, be relatively good. Or maybe some of his special threats, we might be able to take some, you know, relatively uninvested hits and then get the Mago Berry back up. It might just give us that little bit of longevity. Something like the Shaman in particular can air slashes. We'll take that, get the berry, and we'll be able to take like 3 of those while poison jabbing. So there's just some options there that we can kind of go through, and even a Brave Bird from Skarmory we will eat up and be able to Sleep Powder. So yeah, it's just the item I decided was best. I did consider Rocky Helmet as well, but I thought that Mago Berry would be more useful for the longevity of this mod in the team. So that's the build. Like I say, I don't think it's the best build we've had all season. The reason for that being is that I changed too much after the mocks. After the mocks happened, I had a team I was winning with. I then went away and changed it again. So that being said, I do think it's a good enough team for me to win this game if I play properly. So let's see how I played. All that being said, guys, let's jump into the battle. So here we are in the battle, guys, and if I get interrupted partway through, I apologise. My mum should be coming home from work at some point soon, so it might be I have to stop to talk to her, and if this recording is recorded in 2 halves or something like that, it's just because my head started hurting, but I'm sure I'll say before I make a cut if it's something like that, if I decide to take a break just to cool off for a bit and rest my head for a bit. But as you can probably see down here, I think this will show on the recording, this is a pretty long battle, 19 minutes worth of recording. It actually starts about 30 seconds in, so it's more like 18 minutes of battle, but yeah, it's a pretty long game, and you can see why. If we look at my opponent's team, we have the Tapu Koko, the Skarmory, the Blissey, the Slowking, the Noivern, and the Mega Medicham, so that kind of fat core right there that I feared would come, has come. Definitely a little bit worrisome, and one thing to note is that if the Slowking has come, which it has, I'm guessing it's going to be AV, because it can actually take hits from the Hydreigon that way, but also it can kind of take on the Diancie a little bit better. If it's like a Fizz Def invested with AV, it can kind of come in on Mega Diancie. So I'm looking and thinking, okay, well that would make some sense. Maybe that could change up what the Skarmory does exactly, but I'm not quite sure. The rest of his team really strong, or really fast one, sorry, in Coco and Noivern to clean up, and then a really strong breaker. So just pretty simple, like, hazard stack here, fast cleaners and strong breaker. Very simple archetypes for this team, like I said in the team builder. But looking at my team, one thing that I'm kind of thinking now that I'm looking at it is that this is the second time this season we've faced Noivern and Blissi, actually, as we faced Steven earlier in the season and his Hartford Wailmers. And we actually lost to it early in the season, so we don't want to do that again. But just like that battle, I haven't prepped for Noivern at all. I don't know what it is with me and Noivern, but nothing on my team switches into Noivern. Nothing on my team deals with Noivern. Nothing outspeeds it, and that's a big concern when I look at his team and my team, is that his 2 late game cleaners that I'm mentioning here both outspeed my whole team. So we're really trying to win this with our bulk. We're trying to outlast him. And yet he's the one with Skarmory, Blissi and Slaking. So definitely I think some problems in the way that I tweaked this builder. I think that this team was not ideal for my playstyle and for the matchup, but that being said, I do still believe we can do this. We can outlast things, especially if we can catch something like the Noivern or the Coco with an Ice Shard from Mamo. And if we can keep pivoting things around with Rocks and Roar from Mamo, I really think Mamo is looking pretty crucial in this, as well as Toxic being spread around by Salazzle. And Salazzle was pretty nice being outspeed most of his team. So let's get into this and kind of talk about what happened. Looking at the team preview, I decided to lead it off with Salazzle because the hardest thing for me to guard against on his team was the Tapu Koko, right? Mamoswine can switch in on it, but it gives him a lot of momentum if he just clicks U-turn, and it's it really does a lot to my team still. I'm actually realizing now that I've got the audio playing aloud, so I'm just gonna give you guys a good view of my messy room and plug some headphones in so that the audio at least plays through the headphones and isn't going to be super distracting or echoing in your recording, whatever. Hopefully the game audio still captures. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. So yeah, I basically can't really guard against this Coco particularly well. Certainly it's the hardest thing for me to guard against. So leading off with Salazzle, he just doesn't know if I'm Scarf or not, and so it instantly, I think, makes him hard switch out with Coco. Because I do believe that Tone is a good player, so I think he is going to scout and make the the safer play here. And with that in mind, that means that I can just click Toxic and poison whatever's coming in, as it does turn out to be the Slaking, and I'm like, that's brilliant, because if the thing is AV, it's going to be pretty hard for me to break through. Now, one thing that is nice, of course, with Dundee being physical, although I lamented that in my team builder, it does mean that I will be able to break through this Slaking a little bit easier, and God, my head is pounding now as we get back into this. But I'm actually just going to pivot out here into Rouge predicting the Scold. It was just, I mean, it wasn't much of a prediction. He was either going to Side Shock or Scold on the Salazzle in case I was some sort of sub and obnoxious set for sure, or nasty plot or whatever. He couldn't really afford to make a prediction there, I don't think. So we're just going to go into Rouge. Unfortunately, we do get burnt. I actually said in the team builder this was mild. That was incorrect. It was modest. It was mild originally when I had superpower and stuff, but it was modest. So realistically, our U-turns weren't doing a whole lot to anything anyway. So the burn is really just annoying for Chip, for the longevity of this game, because like I said, we are trying to outlast him here. But here I'm just going to pivot back, U-turning out as he stays in, revealing to me that he's almost certainly AV. That means he's either going for this Signal Beam or an Ice Beam. And either way, if he was going for the Ice Beam, I couldn't go into my Thundy much as I would like to. So EMEL here, or Emil, I don't know, Emil, I don't know, Emil maybe. We'll go with Emil. I don't know. Was just definitely my safest switch into either the Ice Beam or the Signal Beam. I don't think he was double scolding there, predicting my U-turn. That would have been a very aggressive play, very possible play, but very aggressive play. So here anyways, we get Salazzle in and behind a sub. I'm just going to go for the taunt because I don't want him getting his rocks up. He probably thinks he can take any hit from me and just go for the rocks. And I don't want rocks up this early because I do have Thundy and Salazzle that I really want to keep rocks down for their longevity, and Mamo as well, of course. Although it's not weak to rocks, just the fact that it is relying on that Aya Papa Berry and doesn't get reliable recovery, I don't want to get chipped down by rocks if it's going to keep coming in on that Coco. It's doing such an important job for this team. Here I just go for Toxic. If he wants to stay in, it's my best play. If he wants to go out into Slaking, it's no skin off my nose. I can just stay in basically and fire off Flames Arrow just for a little bit of chip. I didn't bother to calc this because at this point, once I saw the Signal Beam, I was like, this is AV. You don't run Signal Beam on a Slaking unless it's AV, realistically. I don't think you do anyway, so highly unlikely. So I was like, this is AV. From the way he's played it, from the set that we've seen, that Flames Arrow did nothing, but we are invested and it is a Slaking, so maybe it's not AV, but regardless, I'm still very much working on that assumption. I don't think he has Slack off, otherwise I think he might have gone for it earlier in the game when my Salazzle came in the last time and I got the free sub. So here I'm just going to go for the sub again and basically just force him to keep scolding. getting chipped down, and if I can call a turn that he pivots into Blissey with a Toxic, then that's going to be phenomenal. Unfortunately, there's only so much I can do against this Slaking because because he can keep regenerating out, but we are actually getting more damage off on him than he's recovering with the regenerator, so it's a very slow death for this Slaking, but we will eventually beat it down. And with that Black Sludge recovery, we're not doing too bad either. So this is a pretty long part of the battle here as I just go for the sub again. I blame the long running time of the recording on his team at preview, but realistically, with this Salazzle set, I was kind of running up the timer too. So here we're just going to go for the Taunt as he comes in with Blissey. I'm pretty sure he's going to go for the Seismic Toss here to break my substitute, but that's fine again. It doesn't really matter too much to me. And we're just going to get a little bit of chip off on the Blissey here. So a substitute does, or not a little bit of chip, sorry, we're just going to make sure that he doesn't get rocks up. So here, predicting him to want to pivot back into Slaking this turn, I'm actually going to make the switch into my Outbreaker, into ThunderT, because I feel like this is the thing that he can't guard against. I might not have switch-ins to Coco, but I don't think he has switch-ins to ThunderT. Sorry about that, guys. I had to make a quick cut there. As I said, Mum got home from work, so I was just having a little chat with her. But yeah, basically, I feel like this ThunderT is a thing that he can't guard against. So, but he actually makes the switch into Noivern, which really surprised me. So I was like, okay, I didn't see that coming. I guess this is Infiltrator at first, but then we saw the Frisk, and I was like, all right, he was just maybe Boom Burst on this set, and so he was trying to go through my Salazzle sub and take me out with a Boom Burst. Here I'm just going to go into Mamo because, like I say, I don't have switch-ins to Noivern. I just seem to ignore it in Team Prep. And the other reason for going into this rather than say Dusclops is because if he does U-turn out there, which he does, it brings out the Medicham, which is a thing that I feel I guard best against of his offensive threats. I'd rather he went out into Medicham than Coco. So by coming in with the Mamoswine on potential U-turn or Draco or whatever, we can maybe get our Papa Berry, we can maybe scare him out, get rocks up, or if we go for the U-turn, like I said, we bait out the Medicham rather than anything else. And by baiting out the Medicham, we can get in Simon. Here I considered going for the Will-O-Wisp, considered going for the Shadow Ball. There was a few options, but because of the potential of the Blissey coming in and being able to just soak up a Will-O-Wisp and me getting like literally nothing out of the turn, I decided to double back into Outbreaker once again, trying to get Outbreaker in because of how difficult it is for him to switch into this mon. And this time I'm going to call the U-turn. I can't keep letting him do this. I'm thinking that maybe he doesn't have a lot to hit me. Actually, crits the U-turn, doesn't really matter. It's just a bit annoying for Chip later in the game, but like I say, it's very inconsequential in reality. Out comes Tapu Koko, and I can just go for the Wild Charge here. And I mentioned in the team builder how I wish that I'd kept this special. If you didn't watch, this set was originally a special set with Sludge Wave, and I changed it to physical. This is exactly why, because that would have been a pretty free Sludge Wave in reality, or maybe even an Electrium Z if I still had that set, because Coco would have taken quite a lot. Sludge Wave probably would have killed Coco in reality, and he just didn't have good switch-ins. He couldn't really go into the Blissey, having seen the potential that could be physical. You know, he doesn't know what I am yet, so yeah, I feel like here's where I would have just have clicked Sludge Wave, because Sludge Wave would have done a ton to Noivern as well, and predicting him to U-turn into Coco, I would have been able to bop that thing. So instead, he gets a ton of momentum off as he goes into Coco and kicks Dazzling Gleam and does a chunk to our Mamoswine. It does reveal to be Life Orb though, which obviously we saw in the game, which is not too, in fact no, I think this is the first time I've seen it, which is not too bad. And here, I don't think he would have killed me with another Dazzling Gleam. I can't quite remember the rolls, it might have been a roll, but there's just no better switching that I have to this anyway, so I'm just going to stay in and get my rocks up, expecting him more than likely to want to U-turn out and not risk the roll himself. I don't feel like an Earthquake is worth risking, or potentially even to hard switch out, because I feel like an Ice Shard would do a lot to him if I was like Bandit or something, so yeah, I felt like he might not have run that risk. Instead, he did U-turn and popped my Papa Berry, which is awesome, because now we're actually back at a really good range of health, so that's awesome. The Skarmory comes out, and here I'm like, okay, I think he's just going to go for like hazards of some description. He does go for spikes. After we saw the Stealth Rocks on the Blissey, it made sense that this would be a spike setter. That's kind of what I was expecting. But now I have Outbreaker in, and again, he can't guard against this as far as I'm aware. Apart from he can, because this is a fully Fizz-Def Skarmory, and with that AV Slaking there, maybe I should have seen this coming. But I just really didn't expect it. I didn't think that Skarmory had any need to be fully Fizz-Def against my team. My team isn't that physical. So yeah, really, this caught me hugely off guard and put me in a bad spot where instead of getting a ton of offensive momentum, I actually lost a ton of offensive momentum and chipped down my ThunderT for no reason with the Wild Charge recoil. So what it does mean though is that he can't take 2 Wild Charges after he comes in on rocks. So whilst this is still a annoyance that can sit on the field against my ThunderT. It can't actually switch into my ThunderT. I'll go into Hydreigon there so I could fire off a Fire Blast and potentially U-turn on the Blissey or whatever and get in Outbreaker again. But he just goes for the Whirlwind and pivots me out into Salazzle, which is awesome because it means that I don't take any Flame Orb chip with my Hydreigon. And the other reason that I went into Hydreigon there is if he did go for the Whirlwind, I wouldn't take any Spikes chip with my Hydreigon versus the other things that might have taken Spikes chip. So that was the other reason for that. Now I can just double again because there's no way that he leaves his Skarmory in on my Salazzle. So actually I got a ton of momentum off that Whirlwind because it did whirl me out into Salazzle, which is a little bit fortuitous. But it just does give me my Thunder again, and now finally I'm talking about this position that he can't guard against, and this is it, because that Skarmory cannot come in, take Rocks Chip, and take 2 Wild Charges, I don't think. Certainly looks like it'll be a roll of some description, so this means that I am just free to fire for a Wild Charge and pretty much claim a KO with the Coco having to come in and take Rocks and Wild Charge and stuff. It would do a lot. As you can see here, it probably would have put him in 1 life or recoil range, so out comes the Coco again, and we're pretty safe here knowing that he's going to go for the Dazzling Gleam. But just like last time, I don't have a ton that I can do to guard against this thing, so we're actually just going to pivot out into the Mamoswine. We're going to take the Spikes chip, we're going to take the Dazzling Gleam chip, but we are going to be able to eat this up and threaten him with a potential Ice Shard. And here, I haven't revealed Ice Shard at this point, and I had a really tough 50-50. He's already shown once that he's willing to U-turn on me, and I just didn't want to give him that momentum again. However, with hindsight, because this thing does outspeed my whole team, I think I could have been fairly safe predicting him to switch here. It would have been an aggressive play, but I feel like earlier in the season when I was playing with a lot more confidence than I am at the minute, I would have just roared here. Instead, I do go for the Ice Shard, and he does Scout, going out into the Skarmory, and we lose a ton of offensive momentum again here because this Skarmory comes in and takes Rocks Chip, sure, takes Ice Shard chip, sure, but I mean, what does this do? 10%, if that, you know, and then with the leftovers, it's minimal. So really disappointed there in myself for not being aggressive. Like I say, I feel like as the season's gone on, we had some bad luck earlier in the season, and it just meant that my record plummeted after like a few weeks, and I feel like that I've really lost some confidence with my play. So here I am just going to stay in a roar out of frustration almost at myself, and bring in the Noivern again, and I'm like, okay, I could just roar again here, but I kind of bottle it again and just go for the Ice Shard as he goes back into Skarmory. And I'm thinking to myself at this point, well, it's fine because I'm just chipping down his team. I'm just chipping everything down. I've got 25% off the Noivern. I've got 50% off on the Skarmory now with Rocks Chip, Ice Shard chip, maybe 45%, 40%. But yeah, I'm like, it's fine because I'm chipping down his team. But here, because this battle had been going on so long, and this is an excuse, this is criticism of myself, because this game had been going on so long, I had really lost focus of my endgame. I had started just kind of making plays and being like, well, this is fine because I'm chipping down his team, but I wasn't really thinking about how the hell do I beat Noivern at the end of this game, because Noivern does still outspeed the whole of my team along with Tapu Koko, and my team is pretty chipped down too, and that Ice Shard could be crucial. So whereas in my head I'm kind of thinking, yeah, it's fine, you know, I'll just keep playing aggressively, and or not even aggressively, but playing relatively safe, but in a way that just gets off that little bit of chip. I wasn't thinking about how I actually won. I was thinking about getting percentages on my opponent but not winning, and there's two big things there. You know, it's one thing to try and wear your opponent down, but if you don't have an end game in mind, if you're not positioning that chip for something specifically, then what are you doing it for? You're not going to win the game that way, and that's really what I fell into trap here of doing, and that comes down to my weakness in concentration. I'm not good at long battles at all. My concentration span is famously bad. I don't concentrate very well, and this is really evidence of that. And it's not like people who will say like, oh, I'm just bad at concentrating, I don't have the attention span for long games, and are very blasé about it. That is a flaw in you as a player, right? One of the strengths of good players is that they are able to go for these wars of attrition and stick them out. So if you know that that's something that you do wrong, that's something you've got to work on. It's definitely something I've got to work on. So anyway, here I go for the roar again, and this is a huge misplay because this Ice Shard in the late game is so clutch, so clutch. With the Slaking going down, if I can break the Blissey, like, this thing looks fantastic. Ice Sharding the Noivern, Ice Sharding the Mega Medicham potentially if he doesn't have BP or Fake Out or whatever, Ice Sharding the Coco. Ice Shard is so crucial for those two mons that outspeed my whole team, and like I say, that's where I just kind of lost track of things. So here I'm going to go into Hydreigon, and I know absolutely he's sacking the Coco here. He has no switch-ins left of this thing, Oh no, sorry, I know absolutely I'm getting ahead of myself. This comes up, don't worry. I know absolutely he's going into Blissey here. This is telegraph switching, and I'm just going to go for the U-turn because I refuse at this point to lose any more offensive momentum. I haven't played badly, but I haven't played well. I've been playing kind of mediocre. Like I say, my concentration has let me down a little bit, so I'm going to go into the Thundy here, and I'm more than confident he's going for a soft-boiled because I think he's seen the Z, right? He's seen the Flyinium. He's got to just go for the soft-boiled and try and scout me out and feel me out. So I'm going to go for the Wild Charge. Unfortunately, can't go for the Superpower because it would drop my attack. Can't go for the Fly because it's 2-turn. And can't go for the U-turn because it will pivot me out. So I have to just take the recoil, let him get back to full, feel safe to click something else. And now I can click on my Flyinium. Yes, he could have soft-boiled, double soft-boiled here, and I don't think that would have been a bad play in the slightest. I think that would have been a perfectly good play because if I just kept Wild Charging, he would have worn me down. But I felt pretty confident that this was a time where I just had to go for my Z move if I was ever going to get it off in this game. So we go for the Flyinium here, big Outbreaker coming through and doing a nice sort of 65% there to this Blissey, as he's going to get the leftovers recovery back, get his rocks up, and that's pretty huge because rocks means that Salazzle and Thundy now do not have many switch-ins left, so that does suck for me. Like I say, making those safer plays and allowing him to get rocks up, but it was just my best series of plays that I could have done there. And here I superpowered to KO the Blissey. As I say, if I burnt that Z earlier and let him get the soft boiled and recovery and stuff, then it just wouldn't have been worth it. So it was better instead to play patiently and allow him to get rocks up, even though it wasn't ideal. It would have been much better if we'd gone for a Seismic Toss for me. Out comes Tapu Koko again, and at this point I decide to either sack this or sack the Salazzle, and I actually decide to sack the Salazzle because I feel like Outbreaker is harder for him to guard against again, and Salazzle is a little bit limited, and I think this was another big misplay because this thing does really pressure that Skarmory, but what I kind of hoped was that he would go for a U-turn here, and I knew I would take it because of my physical defense investment. I was hoping that I might be able to catch him being a bit brave with the U-turn there, and yes, I could have stayed in with Thundy to predict that. Both would have been fine plays, but yeah, instead I decided to select the Salazzle, I think, in a misplay. Salazzle goes down here, but we do force him to take 2 turns of Life Orb rather than just 1, which means he is dead on re-entry to rocks. I mentioned him sacking the Koko earlier in the game. We're about to see that unfold here as the Skarmory comes out, and I'm feeling pretty good now, actually, because I'm thinking to myself, right, I've got Hydreigon, he's got to sack the Tapu Koko. Hydreigon is going to kill this thing. He doesn't know if I'm Scarf, so he can't go into Medicham. He has to go into the Noivern to frisk me to find out what item I am. That means Noivern takes another 25%. Maybe I'm going to do this, but then when I stopped and thought about it, I thought, well, actually, once he finds out I'm not Scarf, he knows that he can kill me with Mega Medicham after that, and so maybe I never get the Noivern back in for the rest of this game, and that's the problem, is that yes, I'm getting Noivern in now, and I'm getting it down to 25%, but without that Ice Shard, this is pretty meaningless, because I'm going to need to either dodge a Hurricane, dodge a Draco, or get him to lower his stats with a Draco, or potentially just live one with Simon or Troy Sr. in the endgame with either Dusclops or Tangrowth in the endgame. So, regardless here, I am just going to sack the Thundy, and again, this is where if I had the Salazzle here, I could have gone into Salazzle, taken that U-turn and lived rather than sacking it earlier. So I really should have sacked the Thundy T earlier to the Koko, but you know, that's how it goes down sometimes. Although admittedly then I didn't have anything to outspeed the Koko, so I guess there's that side of things too. At least I forced him to take 2 turns of Life Orb chip. I don't know, it's a pretty difficult one. Maybe that's true actually. I wouldn't have had anything to outspeed the Koko, so it still would have been incredibly difficult. Regardless, this gets me back into Rouge ones here, and this is where I can just fire for Dark Pulse. He no longer has the Koko to sack, and this just guarantees a KO against his team. He knows I'm not Scarf, unfortunately, so he can bring out the Mega Medicham here, but there's always the chance he could be Adamant and underspeed me, so got that going for me as well, potentially. Out comes Shiva, the Mega Medicham. And I believe here I just stay in case he is Adamant and I can outspeed him. If he doesn't have it, I mean, I'm modest, so he should still outspeed me anyway, but you know, if he hasn't got a lot of speed investment, it's just worth me staying in, and rather than choking and going into the into Dusclops hard and taking more chip than I need to, this way at least I can kind of chip him down. Noivern can't take a Shadow Ball after rocks, so he cannot double out here. I'm free to just fire for Shadow Ball. And it will potentially KO this thing, but instead I decide, well, actually I go for the Shadow Ball there, but instead I get frozen, and now I'm like, that was my last chance. Basically my last chance was that Shadow Balling this thing here, and then maybe No, I think I went for the Will-O-Wisp this turn, and then I was going to Pain Split next turn, then Shadow Ball, and basically be able to get Simon to a good range of health, sort of around the 70% mark. Then maybe force a Noivern either to reveal if it's got a Z and go for the Z, or to get drops with Draco Meteor, or to risk missing a Hurricane, right? These are my three end games, is that I've either got to get him to get the drops, I've got to get him to risk a miss, or I've got to get him to burn his Z. One of those three, if he even has a Z. And if he doesn't have the Z, it might be he has to go for double Hurricane to win this game. So this is huge that we get frozen here, because it's like, oh, now I can't do what I would have done. So unfortunately, he is able to fire off another Ice Punch, but we actually thought out here and go for the Will-O-Wisp, and that's amazing. And if Simon can take another Ice Punch and Pain Split back, then that first freeze is completely inconsequential, which is absolutely fantastic. So here we're just going to go for the Pain Split as he goes for the Ice Punch, and we do eat it. We absolutely eat it, and we're able to go for the Pain Split here. So you can see what a good range of health we would have been at. We would have had even more health, I believe, if we'd got the first turn Will-O-Wisp off and then the Pain Split. He's able to go for another Ice Punch here, and that's fine because it's doing nothing to us until it freezes us again, and this really sucks. Like I say, we were pretty much in a position where we were trying to force a little bit of hacks in the end game, potentially anyway, forcing him to land 2 Hurricanes or something like that, but it really, really sucks that at the minute it looks like we're not even going to take it there, because Simon looks like he's just going to drop at the minute. So we're just going to keep firing off the Shadow Ball and hope to take this thing out when we eventually thaw, if we ever thaw, as he's free to Ice Punch again, putting us even lower. And at this point, if he has anything on his Noivern that isn't Hurricane or whatever else, then he doesn't even have to risk the miss because of how low we are. So that really, really sucks. He is free to Ice Punch again, and we just stay frozen. And then I believe he KOs us this turn, I believe. Yeah, he KOs us this turn. And his burn does take him really, really low. So I mean, the good news is that Tangrowth will be able to take this Ice Punch pretty comfortably because he is burnt and because we are a Tangrowth. But yeah, it sucks that Dusclop's gone down there, because what that basically means is that his Noivern only has to land 1 Hurricane now, or if it has Z, it only has to fire if it's Z, or if it's mono Draco Meteor, it can just Draco Meteor without fearing the drops. So, and as you can see there, that Ice Punch does so much, and I believe we missed there. We actually go for the Sleep Powder there. You'll see why in just a second. I believe, as he goes for the Ice Punch here, and pops our Mago Berry. And what I realized when I did the calcs is that after taking the Rock and the Spike, the Mago Berry after 2 Ice Punches would actually take us back to a better range of health than we were after the first Ice Punch. So that was why I made that kind of weird Sleep Powder play. That wasn't me being petulant and being like, oh, you froze me, so I'm just going to click Sleep Powder. Not at all. It was me basically saying, I know I've got this Mago Berry, I can get back to as good a range of health as possible, and maybe force him here to go for a move that could miss, where otherwise he wouldn't have to. So again, here, this all comes down to what his set is and what he's got going on. So maybe he'll miss a Hurricane as he fires off the Z, and we see that it is the Z Fly. So we both brought the Flyinium on our Mons, funnily enough. But his manages to pick up the final KO in this game. And so, like I say, this was a really, really good game. I thought fantastic. A lot to be taken from this in terms of analysis, in terms of always keeping your end game in sight. Always remembering, thinking about speed tiers and how you can win the game, whether your win con is your bulk and outlasting your opponent, whether it's your offense. Not getting that too clouded, and make sure you maintain the right sacks and sacking things at the right time there. I definitely do think we got unlucky in that end game, because like I said, had we had Simon at more like 80% health, 70% health, that I think we could have done, certainly 70% I think we could have had it at, he might have been forced to burn the Z on Simon, and then he would have had to land a Hurricane on the Tangrowth. So like I say, it was just one of those things where we still would have been relying on hacks, right? He still would have had a 70% chance to win the game. But if we've seen anything this season with like the double protects we got earlier in the season, against us earlier in the season, or the high jump kick miss into double para that we got against us earlier in the season, that forcing these end games where it comes down to RNG is no bad thing. And instead we got the double freeze from the Mega Medicham, and we never got a chance to see what would have happened. I don't think that we lost this game to hacks, please do not get me wrong. We lost this game because I did not build or play well enough. That's the simple truth. Tone deserved to win this game for sure. I made some sloppy plays and I made some sloppy decisions in the builder. So GG to my man Tone, very well deserved win. What that means going into the final 3 weeks of this season is we pretty much have to win out if we want to secure playoffs. If we lose one more game, then we are, I think even if we don't, but if we lose one more game, then we are very dependent on other people's results. So going into the last few weeks, I believe we play Aaron 2420, which if he's watching this far, I doubt he is. But if he is it? I know everyone says Aaron, but I don't know if this is a British thing, but in this country, your name is just Aaron. I don't know if that's a thing in America. It really confuses me because I'm always like, it's just Aaron. Two A's R-O-N is Aaron in this country. I have a cousin called Aaron. Anyway, by the by, always confusing me. We play him next week, then we play Odds, and then we play Root in the final week. So we actually play 3 replacement coaches in a row before playing Root in the final week, which is pretty crazy. I do feel that sucks for us because it means that it sucks for us and the league as a whole because it means that we're playing different opponents to who most of the other league competitors faced. So whether these coaches have better records or worse records, I still think it's just not great for the league when someone faces all the replacement coaches rather than just like one a season. But by the by, that's just what happens. I'm not criticizing the league, by the way. I'm saying it sucks for them. It's very unlucky for them that my schedule panned out this way. Because like I said, I think it's just a little bit I don't know, not great. So anyway, I'm gonna shut up now because this video is incredibly long. I'm incredibly warm for some reason. I don't know if the heating's just come on, which is ridiculous because it's May, late May as well. But I'm ridiculously warm and struggling. Maybe it's just my flu coming out, giving me a bit of a temperature or something. I don't know. I'm gonna shut up. I'm rambling on. I'm sorry that this one has been so subdued. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys were able to take something from it. I'm sorry that my play as the season has gone on has got worse and worse. I really wasn't salty about any of the losses that I feel have been down to hacks. It's not that so much as I've been so busy with stuff in real life and my confidence has dropped. That those two things have been a pretty deadly combination where I'm less prepped than I was before and less confident than I was before. But that will come back. That's just dips and troughs and peaks. That's how these things go. So this is a mental game and it's very dependent on mind state. So like I said, next week we'll be going up against Aaron, really nice guy. Can't wait to battle him. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that one. Thank you so much for loafing around with me, and I'll catch you again next time.